What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and you'll probably notice an ongoing theme on this channel, which is that Universal Studios is doing a lot of stuff. I guess that could be an understatement there, as they obviously completed Epic Universe. They are getting rid of Rip Ride Rocket. That is being replaced with an unnamed attraction, and there's lots of speculation about the next things that Universal is going to do, from additions to Epic Universe or other things in the existing parks. And it seems we may have our first indication of where the next thing may be coming, and it very well may point to the Lost Continent. So we have a couple of sources here we're going to go through. This first one, kind of a roundup thing. Cinema Blend here has one that says, Universal Orlando may finally be getting ready to replace part of the resort I honestly thought it forgot about. There's never a bad time to be a theme park fan, but these days the themed entertainment world is eating well. That's very true. From Universal alone, we've seen the opening of both Epic Universe, Universal Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas this year, and the company has several more projects already on the books, from the upcoming Universal Kids Resort to the Universal United Kingdom Resort to a second Horror Unleashed location already in the planning stages. There's so much going on at Universal that I didn't honestly blame anyone when I thought Universal Orlando might have actually forgotten they have an entire theme park lane that's been sitting around for 2 years doing essentially nothing. But we now have some evidence that the Lost Continent's eventual replacement may be moving forward. So basically, I mean, if you know about the Lost Continent, it's kind of interesting. They had closed down Poseidon's Fury for a refurb, then they reopened it, and then shortly after it reopened, they shut it down completely. And a lot of the speculation at the time was that it was going to be Zelda was coming in. That's been the big rumor for years, that Zelda would be moving into the Lost Continent, and that since then, nothing has happened. It's just basically set vacant outside of having some places to eat, sometimes a fountain and where the talking fountain is running. But other than that, it's basically a place to walk through to get to Hogsmeade and get some food if you want in there. But that's kind of it at this point. Poseidon's Fury, the massive walkthrough attraction that was the centerpiece of the Lost Continent at Universal's Islands of Adventure, closed in May 2023. While many were, of course, sad to see the attraction go, we all waited to see what would be announced to replace it, and thus far the answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing has been done with Poseidon's Fury or the rest of the Lost Continent since the attraction closed. The massive facade just sits there unused. The Lost Continent merch shops are still open, and the land is home to Mythos, one of the best theme park restaurants around, but that's basically the only reason to walk through the land at all. I do love Mythos. It is fantastic, and whatever they do, if they are going to do something in the Lost Continent, please leave Mythos alone. Do not touch it. It is fantastic. It's maybe understandable that Universal Orlando hasn't been focusing on the Lost Continent, as it just opened a massive brand new theme park in Epic Universe. The resort has been a tad busy. However, now that that park is open and doing well, it looks like it might be time to do something with the Lost Continent. It says, we still have no idea what the plan for this area is, but it looks like Universal Orlando may be moving forward with whatever it has planned. A new permit for the demolition has been filed. The location, size, and description given for the work being done match up pretty well with the Lost Continent. This application is still listed as open, so it has not been approved. Whatever work is attached to it may still be weeks or months away, but however, if this is the first step in renovating the Lost Continent into whatever land it's going to be, this is great news for fans and just great news for the park that won't have this empty space sitting there much longer. And what he's referring to is over here on Twitter X. This is from Behind the Thrills, as it says, there's recently filed demolition permit for Universal Project 555. Nearly a 5-acre project calling for the demolition of retail, show, and attraction buildings. It says, could this be the replacement for the Lost Continent, Sinbad, or Poseidon? And you can see the permit right here. Kind of lists some extra things here. Is also buildings associated with utilities, pedestrian facilities, access roadway, etc. Like I said, it's open. No dates are filed on this. Looks like they still have a due of $10,000 to do that. I don't know if they owe somebody that. And if you look here as well, which makes it even more interesting, they also say a quick and dirty measurement of the remaining Lost Continent area while preserving the first aid/health services building and Mythos just so happens to be 4.9 acres. So you can see here, this is the Sinbad show that is just sitting there unused. That sits right next to the Hogwarts station. Then you have Poseidon's Fury over here, and then this area back here would not be touched, which would be like Fire Eater's Grill. And then you got Mythos down here. So potentially that does line up. Now, since these permits have been found, Universal has actually given a statement on this. This is actually coming from WDWNT. The actual statement that they made was that, quote, in the coming months, there will be construction activity in Lost Continent as part of site planning to ensure the area is ready for any future developments. And that came from the Director of Public Relations, Kristen Smith. Which I find interesting that you would be filing permits and doing construction just in case there's future stuff coming. I don't think I really buy that. I think that's Universal's way of basically the permits got found, because this happens a lot with Universal, that people find these permits and they don't like to say what's coming. So they're not going to come out and just say, yeah, this is what we're doing. But essentially, they are confirming that something is happening here, but framing it as if like, well, we're just getting things ready for, if we ever do something in the future. I don't buy that. I don't think that's what this is for. I don't think, given how aggressive they're being, that they would spend construction time and money to just get an area ready when they need to, because you could also just do that before you get ready to start the construction, which I do think this leads to, that there is something going to be happening here and not just getting this land ready for future development down the road, 2 to 5 years, whatever that timeline is. I think it's much sooner than that, personally. And also that goes along the lines, we've talked about other videos, Mark Woodbury himself, the Universal Destinations and Experiences CEO, has basically said that there is going to be more expansions at their theme parks outside of just Epic Universe. So he's said as much, that there are multiple things coming. And having said that just a few days ago, and then seeing this and Universal, saying, yeah, we're doing something here, I just don't think that this is just them prepping land. I think they are prepping land, but I think they are prepping it knowing that they are getting ready to do something with it. That's my guess. Now, in terms of what they might do with this land, I think that's where it gets very, very interesting. So several rumors have been floating around the theme park sphere about what could be in line for the area. The most popular is that it could end up being a Legend of Zelda land as part of Universal's ongoing deal with Nintendo. The popular One Piece anime is another idea that some seem to think could be the focus. I can say pretty confidently, I don't believe it is going to be Zelda going into the Lost Continent. It seems at this point, at least from the latest things I've heard, that Zelda is likely to go over into Epic Universe to be an extension off of Super Nintendo World. Because I know years ago, whenever they were really looking at this project, one of the worries was that Zelda wasn't a big enough draw to really bring people over into the park on its own. They were really unsure about that. Even though, Zelda's a big property, has a big following, that was one of the things they were unsure about, and really selling it to more of the normie audience. Obviously, Zelda has its fan base, but they didn't know if it had really cross appeal. Kind of like, Harry Potter has that cross appeal in a lot of ways. Nintendo has that cross appeal, but maybe not Zelda itself. So tucking it into Super Nintendo World would actually make sense, given, first off, the gift shop right outside of Super Nintendo World has Zelda all over it, which I think that is a massive Easter egg, because there's nothing else in there really that is in that shop that's represented that much that also is not represented in the park. They have lands based on Mario, Donkey Kong, all these other characters you can find in that shop, and then Zelda is a very big part of it. So I kind of think that's been an Easter egg the whole time, but also putting it into Super Nintendo World, if your worry is that it's not a big enough draw on its own to pull people over to, say, Islands of Adventure, then it becomes part of the broader offering at Epic Universe, and it also helps, given more things to do in that park, can help with the wait times and, dispersing the crowds a bit. So that's probably the thinking there. And I actually have heard recently, and I've talked about this on some live streams and just on other videos, that very possibly one of the hot rumors out there that I think does have some credence to it is One Piece coming over here. Whispers of this being One Piece, but Wallin Ballin on Twitter X, which I will say, I think he does know some people that are inside of Universal that do tell him some things. Whether you like him or not, I enjoy Wallin Ballin. I don't know who he is. Seems like a good guy. He gets a lot of hate for being positive, I think, most of the time. And sure, he has some takes that people don't like, but it's Twitter X. That's part of the whole experience of that, is basically people just get mad at other people's opinions. But he says, breaking, I've recently received word from a source inside Universal Marketing that One Piece is in consideration for a Lost Continent replacement, and that concept plans have been drawn up, with the Islands of Adventure Lagoon receiving a giant pirate ship edition. It says the caveat, this contradicts other reports I've received that it will actually be a different IP going into Lost Continent. So grain of salt, but it sure is interesting nonetheless. Anime is absolutely massive. One Piece is very popular, and I felt like Universal may be the theme park that would really introduce anime, kind of the first domestically on a mass scale. It could be Universal. And we saw anime be represented over in the Universal Fan Fest in Hollywood. That was a big part of that event. And from the guys I talked to that went over there, they said it was very popular there. And anime in general is just very popular. And now another rumor that I have heard, I've heard One Piece, obviously Zelda is out there about what could replace Lost Continent. I've also heard potentially they could just expand Hogsmeade as well and create another Harry Potter attraction, essentially doubling down on a very popular land in the parks. Says, of course, it's also possible that this is something else entirely. There are other parts of Islands of Adventure, including Marvel's Superhero Island, that it's been rumored could be replaced. I'll just say right now, they are not going to replace Marvel's Superhero Island unless Disney backs up the Brinks truck. This rumor pops up I swear it's every 6 months. You'll hear about Universal's looking to replace Marvel's Superhero Island. It makes no sense for Universal to do it, given it gives Disney an IP that they would turn around and put into their theme parks that they could use against Universal. And we do know Universal is openly saying that they are competing with Disney. They want to be the first choice in Orlando. And it makes no sense, given that scenario, that even if you had a good idea to replace it with something, that you would just give up the Marvel Superhero Island so that Disney could use it. Because the way that contract works is they don't have to renew it. This contract was made in the 90s when Marvel was struggling. They pay a very low fee per year to be able to maintain it. And it's more valuable to Universal to keep it as it is in their parks, to keep it out of Disney's hands. I just don't think Universal is going to do anything with Marvel Superhero Islands for that reason. Then they say the Simpsons land at Universal Studios Florida may also be on the way out, as its licensing deal is believed to be expiring soon, and now that Disney owns the Simpsons, a renewal seems unlikely. And there were some rumors out there that I'm not going to name names, but there was a YouTuber that basically had said that from my understanding, I didn't see the video, and I believe the video in which he mentions this was clipped out recently, was a bartender told him that Universal has renewed the licensing deal for Simpsons, and that was going to stay around for like 5 more years. I have found absolutely nothing that basically backs that up. The only source out there for that was just that YouTuber that mentioned it. I don't think there's any credence to it. There's nothing out there supporting it. Not only do I not think Universal wants to renew The Simpsons, I just think The Simpsons overall is a brand that's just, slowly kind of fading out of relevance. But also Disney owning them, I don't believe that they're just going to allow Universal to have one of their properties in their parks, as Disney would likely do something with it, even if it was just having meet and greets in Hollywood studios or something like that. And Disney likes to control their IPs. They're not really big fans of having their IPs, used by other people, especially their competitors. So I don't think there's any credence to, at least at this point, I guess it could happen, but at this point, I don't believe that the Simpsons area has been renewed. And the big rumor there for years has been Pokemon would go into Simpsons, but I've also heard recently that there have been some setbacks, I suppose, on that, as Pokemon's kind of interesting. It's a massive property. It would be a huge thing for Universal, but Pokemon's owned by multiple different entities, so I think you'd have to work out deals with multiple companies there, and that could be the issue they're running into. So I think they will do something with The Simpsons because that contract runs out in 2028, but I don't know if it's going to be Pokemon at this point. So still, the Lost Continent seems like the most likely next project at Universal's Orlando Resort, and that project may be starting soon. Of course, Universal likes to start new attractions without even telling anybody, so even if the work begins soon, we may not know what's coming in its place for a long time. And that's also the thing, and I kind of like the way Universal does this. It just keeps you guessing and speculating. You look at Rip Ride Rocket. They are already starting construction on that, and we don't know what's replacing it, and they very likely won't announce what is replacing that probably till the ride is about a year away from opening, and then they'll come in and say this is what it's going to be. They did this with Epic Universe during the construction. We obviously knew about Super Nintendo World, but even the Wizarding World, Ministry of Magic, they had the Streets of Paris and the hand with the wand at the entrance portal, and obviously this was going to be the Wizarding World, but Universal didn't officially say that's what it was going to be until almost a year before the park opened. I think it's very likely they'll do that with Rip Ride Rocket's replacement. But specifically about the Lost Continent, they need to do something with this area. It has been sitting vacant for years because it's just been a pared down land for a while, just a walkthrough area, and especially given with Epic Universe Online now, and that's going to continue to grow in popularity, especially as they're able to get more people in that park. So you're going to have more people coming to the other Universal parks as well, because they've also shown that since Epic Universe has opened, they're not seeing the cannibalization and attendance from their existing parks. So if you have more people coming into your parks, you also need more things in the existing parks. So they definitely need to go about updating these parks, and I think this area is prime for that. What they do here will be very interesting in terms of, how quickly do they move on this. But as I've been saying for a while now, Universal is not going to slow down. They have been aggressive, and I think how aggressive they are going to be in the next decade is going to really wow people. I think that their plans and how quickly they want to move is going to be very impressive. And Mark Woodbury himself, the CEO of the Universal Parks, said at a Bank of America investor conference just last week that they have a very broad and ambitious game plan for the next decade and beyond. And the cadence of attractions they want to open, they said they feel very comfortable and they feel like it's a very aggressive plan. And when he's talking about the cadence of attractions, which Universal has talked about before, is they like the idea of one new attraction per year opening. So if you look at it that way, Rip Ride Rocket likely will be sometime in 2026 would be my guess when it opens. I don't know how long it will take them. Potentially, though, you could see them get that right up and running by the end of 2026 or 2027. But then if they start construction here, then you would have potentially, Lost Continent, whatever replaces it, might be in 2027 or 2028. And so you could see the beginnings of them really getting aggressive and having more attractions coming online each and every year as they continue to flush out the parks and, of course, compete with Disney as the things that they are building. One of the assets that they have and the things that really set them apart from Disney is how quickly they build. And that is a major question about, Disney versus Universal as this continues to heat up, is Disney, historically at least, does not build quickly. Now, currently they have 3 parks under construction, and then they're going to have Villains Land they're going to do. But there's lots of questions about how quickly will these things get done. And as I've been saying many times, I don't think these things get done for 5 to 7 years. Bob Iger himself even said that usually the theme park construction is at least about 5 years. So if you look from that scenario, by the time Disney gets open, many of the things that they are currently building, Universal could have 2 or 3 attractions come online in that time period. So these things that they're building would be considered the answers to Epic Universe. Then Disney would have to then have more things to answer for whatever the new things that Universal is doing. And I think you're just going to see this back and forth and, Universal getting much more aggressive as they're continuing to compete more with Disney. Mark Woodbury also said that ever since Epic has opened, and it's just been open for 3 months, they've already seen a market share shift since it's been open. So if they're already seeing momentum off of that, they have every reason to continue to expand these parks. And Comcast has even said they're going to put as much money as needed into the parks. So what ends up going into Lost Continent, who knows at this point? The speculation is fun. But I do think if you're looking at the permits there, you look at the size of Lost Continent, it's very likely this could be a permit that begins the replacement of Lost Continent, which is definitely needed. And not only here, but I think you're going to see future ones. Permits come out here introducing more things coming to the Universal Park. So like I said, if you're a theme park fan, if you're into Universal, if you're into even Disney, the new things they're doing, it is going to be some good eating for the next decade in terms of attractions, as these 2 theme park destinations are just going to continue to compete for your vacation dollar, which means the consumer wins. And as I've said many times, I love a good fight. So I want to see them fight it out and bring all these attractions that they think people want. I think it's a great thing. I'm all for it. So we'll see what ends up happening here. And when we do know more about this, of course, we will talk about it on here and let you know about it. But for now, that is going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think could replace the Lost Continent? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.